Tonight, order at the border. President Biden preparing to sign an executive action restricting migrant crossings. The sweeping measure would shut down the southern border and cap the number of migrant encounters, turning away those who missed the cutoff. The plan, one of Biden's most aggressive immigration policies of his tenure, and a plan he criticized when running for office. The president attempting to address one of his biggest political vulnerabilities as voters find him weak on the issue. The pushback tonight from immigration advocates. Also, the new face of Mexico, one Biden will have to work with closely on border relations. Mexico naming its first ever female president, Claudia Sheinbaum, winning the landmark election in a landslide victory. The biggest issues she faces including cartel violence, corruption, and of course, immigration. Will she be able to turn things around for her country? Growing wildfire danger, a massive fire raging outside of San Francisco, thousands of acres scorched, residents forced to evacuate, and major highways cut off. Firefighters injured as they're met with walls of flames and brutal temperatures. The concerns for more fires amid a triple-digit heat wave. The jury is set in Hunter Biden's gun trial, the historic case marking the first time a child of a sitting president is on trial. The questions about substance abuse, political ties, and gun views taking center stage as the jury was selected. A tourist arrested in Turks and Caicos for having bullets in his luggage speaking out tonight right here on Top Story. How his vacation in paradise spiraled into international incarceration. And the moment he was released, returning to his wife and kids after being detained on the island. Atlanta water emergency, one of the nation's largest cities in a deepening water crisis after a string of water main breaks. School programs forced to close, thousands under a water boil advisory, some neighborhoods without drinking water. So what's going on? Top Story starts right now. And good evening. Tonight, President Biden taking his biggest step yet to crack down on migrant crossings at the southern border. The announcement coming just as Mexico makes history, electing the country's first female president. Biden slated to sign an executive action that will temporarily shut down the border once the number of migrant encounters between legal entry points exceeds 2,500 in a day, turning away those over the threshold. That announcement coming as Biden ramps up his re-election campaign, facing mounting pressure from voters to take action on the issue. An NBC poll finding 69% of voters disapprove of his handling of the border. Biden's executive action will deny those seeking legal entry to the country, a move he once criticized of his political opponent Donald Trump for on a debate stage in 2020. Take a listen.
This is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law.
Now, though daily encounters continue to remain high, the number of monthly border encounters has sharply decreased. You can see it here in this graph, from reaching record highs back in December, thanks in part to a collaboration between the U.S. and Mexico. Will that collaboration continue as Mexico's newly elected president, Claudia Sheinbaum, steps into her new role? Immigration is just one of several major issues the U.S. and Mexico will have to work together on to resolve. NBC's Julio Vaquero starts us off tonight from Mexico City.
Facing mounting pressure over his handling of the border, NBC News has learned that the Biden administration is expected to announce a sweeping executive action that would allow the president to temporarily shut down the border if the number of illegal crossings reaches 2,500 a day, according to 3 people familiar to the discussions. There are currently more than 4,000 illegal border crossings every day, according to Homeland Security, suggesting a shutdown could go into effect immediately. This policy is a reversal from the president's stance in January. With the presidential election approaching, Mr. Trump routinely slams President Biden over his handling of the border.
They're pouring through every state. Every state is now a border state.
Now President Biden is trying to institute restrictions similar to those Mr. Trump tried to enact in 2018, which courts struck down.
This really what sounds like a draconian and potentially unlawful immigration shutdown of the border.
This announcement on the heels of history in Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum won yesterday's presidential election, becoming the first woman and the first Jewish president in the country's 200-year history. The climate scientist and former mayor of Mexico City will now be tasked with working with the U.S. to contain the flow of migrants at the border.
I'm sure we're not going to have any major announcements of changes or proposals until it's defined, to find out who's the next president of the United States.
And Julio Vaquero joins us tonight from Mexico City. So, Julio, explain to our viewers how significant is this that we now have the first female and the first Jewish president of Mexico?
It is really remarkable, Tom. Just think about this. Every day, according to the United Nations, 10 women are killed in Mexico. And this is the same country that now just elected the first female president. So the big question now is, will she be able to govern as an independent president, or will she follow the instructions from her predecessor, current President Andrés Manuel López Obrador? He's very popular, and a lot of people are asking if is she going to implement policies that really favor women in this country.
Telemundo anchor Julio Vaquero. Julio, we thank you for that. Leading us off tonight. For more on Mexico's president-elect and the impact she could have, I want to bring in Guad Venegas, who also joins us live tonight from Mexico City. So, Guad, we just heard there from Julio about the significance of the first female president of Mexico, but she is connected to the current president, AMLO. So how much will Mexico really change with Claudia Sheinbaum?
Tom, she's connected to him. They are allies. In fact, she was there with him when they founded the Morena political party, to which they both belong. So here's what we know. She has pledged to continue with AMLO's legacy. AMLO has talked about the fourth transformation of Mexico. That has been the period of time when she's been president. He says that the first transformation of Mexico was when Mexico got its independence from Spain. The second transformation was when they separated church and state. The third was the Mexican Revolution that set terms on presidential terms. They set a limit. And then this is the fourth transformation. In this fourth transformation, they've set up social services to help low-income Mexicans, to help people most in need. They raised the minimum wage. They also cut down on the salary of a lot of government officials. That's what Mexico has been working on. And Claudia Sheinbaum is expected to continue with that legacy. Also, the spending on large projects that the government has focused on, like using trains for public transportation across the country, a government-run airline, and other major projects that some people have criticized AMLO for, but Sheinbaum says she will continue to focus on. And as Julio mentioned, a lot of people want to know what she will do when it comes to women. There's an issue with femicides in Mexico. Women would like the government to focus on the fact that a lot of the crimes against women go unpunished. So these are the things that will be a challenge for Sheinbaum as she moves forward. And lastly, as someone who has a PhD in energy engineering, what can she do to help a country move into the future when it comes to renewable energy, when it comes to dealing with climate change, and also a drought that is affecting a large part of the country?
Guad, I want to turn now to this upcoming executive order we mentioned at the top of the broadcast from President Biden, likely sealing off the southern border to asylum seekers if daily crossings surpass 2,500 in a single day, at least temporarily, right? Actions like this always require coordination with the Mexican government. So how easy do we expect this new Mexican administration to be for President Biden to work with?
Well, this new administration in Mexico is going to be from a president that belongs to Morena to another president that belongs to Morena. So it'll be an easy transition, right? And if Biden were to remain president and win the re-election, that would be the easiest transition for both sides, because they would be working with people that they know. Now, there's one thing I'd like to mention about the announcement today. So we've heard about the U.S. announcing that they will shut the border down if they have more than 2,500 crossings. It's important, Tom, to keep in mind, you've been to the border. You've reported at the border. I've been to the border to report as well. When we talk about the border, there's ports of entry, which people use every day to cross back and forth, necessary for businesses both on the Mexican side and the American side. And there's also a lot of ports of entry for commercial vehicles. There's the trains that have to go with commerce. When they talk about shutting down the border, they are not referring to that. They're referring to the areas in between the ports of entry where migrants cross illegally to then request asylum. So what they mean when they say they're going to shut the border down, it would mean that Border Patrol, to our understanding, Border Patrol would detain undocumented immigrants and probably send them back to Mexico, perhaps an expulsion, without perhaps allowing them to request asylum. So very important to keep that in mind as the two countries work together, Tom.
Has the president-elect said anything about President Biden or our former president, Donald Trump?
So this is interesting, Tom. She has said that whether it is Trump who wins the presidency or Biden, she will be able to work with both of them. A lot of critics here have said that Trump winning the election in the U.S. would complicate things for Mexico because Trump has said he would immediately deport undocumented individuals back into Mexico. And Mexico has already been dealing with an increase of migrants coming through the southern border. So that would complicate things for Sheinbaum. But she pointed out to the fact that when Andrés Manuel López Obrador began his presidency, Trump was president in the United States, and they were able to have a good relationship and work together. So she said she would be able to have a good relationship with Donald Trump, just like Andrés Manuel López Obrador had at one point, Tom.
Guad Venegas, some phenomenal reporting there on this historic election out of Mexico. Guad, we thank you for that. Back here at home to our other major headline, a wind-driven wildfire out west forcing evacuations and shutting down a major highway. Firefighters battling the flames all weekend in an early start to fire season as the first major heat wave in the region begins as well. But the risk is not over just yet. A new heat wave across the Southwest spelling even more danger. Dana Griffin is there in the fire zone tonight.
Frightening images of a wind-fueled wildfire in Northern California's San Joaquin County, nearly 60 miles east of San Jose. Families forced to evacuate under heavy smoke.
The flame was actually lapping up on the side of the trailers and on the side of my car.
This house, the only one to go up in flames, now a charred reminder of what once stood. The Corral fire, driven by 40-mile-per-hour winds, started Saturday afternoon near the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. 2 firefighters were injured as more than 14,000 acres burned. The cause unknown. This week marks the first significant West Coast heat wave of the year. Coming off the heels of a wet winter, there's a lot more vegetation to burn. Heat alerts are in effect for 23 million people across the Southwest, including California, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. Temperatures expected to soar 20 degrees above average.
This could be a heat wave that lasts for 10 days or longer. And so the impacts of a heat wave this significant this early are probably greater than they would be, say, if we saw the same temperatures in July or August.
A vastly different weather pattern taking shape in the Pacific Northwest. A pair of atmospheric rivers dumping heavy rain in Washington, causing multiple collisions and snarling traffic during the morning commute. From heavy rain to wildfires, just the beginning of a wacky week of West Coast weather.
All right, Dana Griffin joins us tonight live from Tracy, California. Dana, you mentioned there's more vegetation to burn. How bad could this fire get?
Yeah. Well, Tom, remember, this fire broke out June 1st, and we usually don't see these sort of smaller grass fires pop up until July. So the CAL FIRE PIO told me that this is an indication that we may have a more active fire season. Because we had that wet winter, we've got a lot more grass. And this fire that burned behind us, we are told that some of the vegetation was up to 5 feet tall. So they had to use special equipment just to try to put it out. So the warning for people out there is to be ready early for a potentially active wildfire season. Tom?
All right, Dana Griffin for us tonight. Dana, we thank you for that. And severe weather still threatening the South tonight with millions in the risk zone. So let's get right to NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns, who joins us now live. Bill, we have those fires out west. I know you're watching that severe weather in the middle of the country.
Yeah, over the weekend, we did have some significant severe weather. Thankfully, we didn't have any big tornadoes that took out towns like we had been dealing with throughout much of the month of May. So severe weather, we have a risk in northeast Texas and also an area right along the Texas-Oklahoma border. We're watching this area from Dallas over to Shreveport. Looks like damaging winds, small hail with these storms is probably the worst of it. That'll be approaching Shreveport shortly and heading into El Dorado. Dallas, you've been hitting on and off showers. The worst of the weather definitely to your east. Still downpours right over the downtown area. Fort Worth, by the way, has been completely completely missed. Tomorrow, we're taking our severe weather threat north, Kansas City, northwards up to Minneapolis. Isolated tornadoes. More of the biggest threat's going to be hail and damaging winds. And as far as the heat dome going in the west, it's going to build. And this is the beginning of our summer dry season and the beginning of our heat season in the west. And as we were mentioning, the last 2 winters in a row were very wet. We had a lot of snow, a lot of rain, and last year we didn't have a lot of fires. It was actually a very low year for the West for fire season, so there's a lot of stuff to burn if fire starts. So we got 23 million people. We got heat warnings up from Phoenix to Tucson, all the way to Central California, and we do expect, Tom, this will last well into the upcoming weekend.
All right, Bill Cairns. Bill, we thank you for that. Next night to the chaotic day on Capitol Hill, Republicans facing off with Dr. Anthony Fauci over his handling of COVID in his first public testimony since leaving the government in 2022. NBC's Ali Vitale has a look at some of those explosive moments.
Tonight, Dr. Anthony Fauci in the hot seat.
You belong in prison.
I am so sorry that you are subjected to those level of attacks.
House Republicans pressing the former face of America's pandemic response on past COVID restrictions, including that rule Americans should stay 6 feet apart.
Wearing a mask, maintaining 6 feet of distance.
Fauci told the committee behind closed doors that 6-foot rule sort of just appeared. Today, clarifying he meant there were no clinical trials done.
Do you think that a rule that sort of just appeared is substantial justification for the regulations that we saw based on that 6-foot rule?
When saying it just appeared, it came from the CDC.
And you didn't feel an obligation as the lead scientist at the NIH to challenge that?
I've challenged the CDC multiple times.
Publicly, you challenged them on the 6-foot distancing rule?
It is not appropriate to be publicly challenging a sister organization.
Republicans also pressing him on COVID's origins. Fauci denying he downplayed the possibility of a leak from the Wuhan lab in China.
Do you agree that there was a push to downplay the lab leak theory?
Not on my part.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
Wow.
I think most of the country would find that amazing.
But look at the facts. I've kept an open mind throughout the entire process.
Fauci emotional, talking about the threats he and his family still face.
It is very troublesome to me. It is much more troublesome because they've involved my wife and my 3 daughters.
All right, with that, Ali joins us tonight from Capitol Hill. So, Ali, anyone seen these headlines? Anyone seen the exchanges on television, on social media? I mean, they're going to kind of see everything that happened, the back and forth. But did we actually learn anything today?
I think the big question that I was hoping to learn, and frankly that the committee needed to learn too, is are we better prepared now for whatever the next public health crisis is, whatever the next pandemic is, if and when it comes? And candidly, not much time was spent on that. Instead, it ended up being a lot of looking back, specifically at the origins of the coronavirus itself, but also the certain regulations that were put in place around social distancing and masking, all of that a rehashing, not exactly a forecasting in how we could be better prepared for the next one. That's why we'll be looking ahead not just to what the committee learns from other governors, like former Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York, who will be testifying behind closed doors next week, I'm told by the committee, but also the ways in which this committee writes its final report. Are they able to look forward when it's clear that this Republican majority really wants to look backwards at how this was handled back in 2020?
And I want to ask you about that. Do you know why they want to question former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo?
He was one of the key people, of course, alongside of Anthony Fauci, who really was a face that people associated with the government response to the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, Cuomo was an executive in his own right in the state of New York, contrasting that with Fauci, who was working as part of the Trump and then, of course, Biden administrations. But I think that for them, it's a question of getting to the bottom of all of the different ways that regulations were made around this pandemic, especially in states that really did implement restrictions on closing businesses, churches, other entities like that, and of course places that advocated for mask wearing and social distancing, the exact kind of policies that Republicans today and in the past have railed so heavily against.
Ali Vitale on Capitol Hill. Next to Joe Biden's son, President Joe Biden's son in court, Hunter Biden, appearing in Wilmington, Delaware today. He faces 3 firearms-related charges brought by special counsel David Weiss, a Trump appointee. Biden pleading not guilty, and the jury sworn in today with several potential jurors dismissed for saying they have strong opinions about the first family. Ryan Nobles is in Delaware tonight.
Tonight, for the first time in American history, the child of a sitting president is facing a criminal trial. And now the 12-member jury is set, 6 men and 6 women, including 6 jurors who own guns themselves or have family members that purchased them recently. Hunter Biden accused of lying on a federal form in 2018 to purchase a gun, checking a box saying he was not an active drug user, despite acknowledging in his book he was addicted to crack cocaine at the time. First Lady Jill Biden making a surprise appearance, sitting just a few feet behind her son in court. And the president offering his support, saying, "As the president, I don't and won't comment on pending federal cases, but as a dad, I have boundless love for my son." President Biden spending Memorial Day weekend with Hunter and recently inviting him to state dinners and defending him publicly.
First of all, my son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him.
But his son's legal battles likely to take a political toll on the president in the midst of a re-election campaign. Hunter's original plea bargain, which would have resulted in no prison time, was blasted by Republicans as a sweetheart deal, and it fell apart under a judge's scrutiny. Special prosecutor David Weiss then charging him for both tax and gun crimes, to which Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty. Weiss saying he'll rely on Hunter's laptop, writing the defendant's laptop is real. It will be introduced as a trial exhibit, and it contains significant evidence of the defendant's guilt. Prosecutors also expected to call Hallie Biden, who Hunter was dating when the handgun was discovered. She's the widow of his brother Beau.
Okay, Ryan Nobles joins us tonight from outside that courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware. Ryan, do we know anything else about the jurors?
Yeah, we actually know quite a bit, Tom, and it was interesting sitting in the room listening to them being questioned by the prosecution and the defense about their backgrounds, their interaction with the Biden family. Delaware is a relatively small state, so it was difficult to find a completely impartial jury, but we do know that it ended up being 6 men and 6 women, one of them a Secret Service agent. 6 of the members of this panel either own firearms themselves or have had family members that have owned firearms in the past. So this is an interesting cross-section of the people of Delaware, and they are the ones that ultimately have Hunter Biden's fate in their hands, Tom.
And I know you have some new reporting tonight about the first potential witness.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to see opening arguments in this case kick off first thing tomorrow morning. This trial is not going to last very long, only about a week and a half. The first witness the prosecution is expected to call is an FBI special agent who was one of the lead investigators into the Hunter Biden case. She will be the first witness on the witness stand. Of course, a number of other witnesses also expected to be called. One name, though, that's still a lingering question is whether or not Hunter Biden will testify in his own defense. Tom.
All right, Ryan Nobles covering that trial for us. We want to turn now to the race for the White House. The Biden campaign unleashing a wave of attacks on former President Trump over his historic conviction here in New York last week. And the new comments from Trump sparking some outrage, predicting if he's thrown in jail, the American people will reach a, quote, breaking point. Gabe Gutierrez has this one.
Tonight, former President Trump is blasting his sentencing date in July, just days before the Republican National Convention.
Well, that's part of the game.
And saying he was initially surprised by last week's guilty verdict.
Well, it was weird because we go in and the judge, it looked like it was a hung jury for a while.
The new comments out today as the former president has seen a flood of campaign donations following his conviction on 34 counts of falsifying business records related to hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. He now says he plans to appeal, posting the Supreme Court must decide. He was also asked about revenge.
Revenge will be success, and I mean that. But it's awfully hard when you see what they've done.
And the potential for prison time.
I'm okay with it.
He could get probation or up to 4 years behind bars, though that's unlikely.
I'm not sure the public would stand for it. I think it would be tough for the public to take. You know, at a certain point, there's a breaking point.
The Biden campaign is seizing on that, accusing Mr. Trump of teeing up political violence and now escalating its attacks, branding the former president a diminished man, white-collar crook, and convicted felon.
And we're going to remind people who Donald Trump is.
But most Republicans are rallying around him. A new poll shows just 1 in 10 say they're less likely to vote for him after his conviction.
Gabe Gutierrez joins us tonight from the White House. So, Gabe, we had covered on Friday how much the Trump campaign says they raised since that guilty verdict, and that number has gone up since then. Also, let our viewers know what's next for the Biden-Harris re-election campaign.
Yeah, Tom, the campaign says it raised $53 million in the first 24 hours since the conviction, as you mentioned. And now it says it, along with the RNC, raised $141 million in May. A quarter of those donations, it says, came from new donors. And Tom, President Biden is heading to France this week for the D-Day anniversary and a state dinner. And later this week, the vice president is campaigning in Michigan. But they're really trying to hit that message, the campaign is, of reminding voters who they say Donald Trump is. So expect to hear that phrase, convicted felon, a lot. Tom?
Gabe, we thank you for that. Still ahead tonight, the new charges for the alleged Gilgo Beach killer. Prosecutors say Rex Heuermann now responsible for a fifth murder. What we're learning about the searches that reportedly led to the new indictment. Plus, getting out of Gaza, loved ones of Palestinians trapped in the war zone turning to GoFundMe to raise money for their evacuation. How social media influencers are now getting involved. And in our top story spotlight tonight, Nightmare in Paradise, we sit down with one of the 5 Americans arrested in Turks and Caicos for having bullets in his bags. Stay with us. Top story, just getting started on this Monday night. We are back now with tonight's top story spotlight. Our next guest's vacation in paradise became an absolute nightmare when he was arrested in Turks and Caicos for having ammunition in his travel bag. Brian Hagerich faced up to 12 years for violating local gun control laws. Those prohibit anyone from keeping, carrying, discharging, or using an unlicensed firearm or ammunition. That means bullets. He pled guilty and was handed a 52-week suspended sentence and a $6,700 fine after 3.5 months in Turks and Caicos. In response to his sentencing, the Turks and Caicos government said this: justice has been served as the law intended. As we have said, the Firearms Act includes consideration for exceptional circumstances, and today's decision reflects our commitment to judicial independence along with upholding the law. Brian was reunited with his family. You see the emotional moment right here for the first time in 110 days at the end of last month. He is one of 5 Americans that have been charged with bringing ammo into the country. 2 of those Americans are still waiting for their day in court. And Brian Hagerich joins us now live in studio. Brian, thank you so much for joining Top Story.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start at the beginning. Where exactly was the ammo?
So I had a checked bag, large piece of luggage that I frequently use for weekend hunting trips. It was a bag that we hurriedly packed the night before we left. It was filled with sunscreen, puddle jumpers, flip-flops, everything you can
you pack for a family.
Correct. And we never fully unpacked the bag. So, again, you know, we're going on a beach destination vacation. Never even crossed our minds to check any, you know, warnings, things like that, travel advisories. We were there to spend a week with my kids and my family.
Yeah. Have you ever traveled with those bags and bullets in them, like around the United States? Has it ever been an issue?
It's never been an issue within the U.S., no.
Okay. When they told you there's bullets in the bag, what did you say, and how did they approach you?
I was equally surprised at the time. At first, it was, you know, it's an honest mistake. I quickly recognized the ammunition as, you know, ammunition I use at home on weekend hunting trips. I said, this is an honest mistake. And
there's no firearms.
No firearms.
You're with your family.
Correct.
You're not there to commit any type of crime, and yet they wouldn't buy it, right? The law was broken.
I first suspected them to discard it and would go about our business, board our flight, and go home, but quickly realized that was not going to be the case.
So they handcuffed you, and they took you in somewhere?
Shortly thereafter, I pleaded with them to inform my family what was going on, and shortly thereafter, yes, I was handcuffed and taken into custody.
What did that feel like? You're supposed to be on vacation.
You can never prepare yourself for that type of situation. It's one I never imagined being in. I'm a man of faith, integrity, honor, certainly the last place I expected to be.
Did the American consulate, did the State Department help you in any way?
I personally did not hear from them for over 70 days after I was detained.
70 days you didn't hear from any American officials? That's crazy.
I received the first phone call 76 days later.
And so how are you getting through this process? Do you, I assume, hire counsel on the island?
We had hired counsel on the island. Initially, the plan was to basically, go about this in as quiet of manner as possible. Once there was a second and third husband and wife detained, it was, we made the decision, we need to go public with this. And finally, after this made national media, that I received a phone call from the State Department.
How did you find out about the other families?
So once you find yourself in a situation like this, it becomes a very small world. There were 4 others arrested in 2023 that I quickly became in touch with that have provided assistance, just a small network of folks. And through a friend of a friend that had been involved with the previous case of Michael Grimm, who spent 5 months in prison, informed me of this, and we quickly got in touch with the Watson family. And just like that, we're lifelong best friends now.
What were you thinking? I mean, again, I can't get over this. You're in paradise. You're probably looking forward to a few days of some sun and fun, and then you find yourself trapped and in limbo because we're talking about more than 100 days now, right?
It was a fight for my life. I mean, literally. Everything you hear is 12 years, 12 years, 12 years in prison. And when you hear that's quite a scary thing to hear, knowing that I probably won't see my daughter graduate high school. She just graduated kindergarten a week ago. So when you hear those things, it's a full-on battle.
People are thinking about your family, they're thinking about your wife and your kids, and I know that was the toughest part. Sure. But you're also a provider for your family, right? Yep. So you couldn't work.
No.
So how much, do you have any idea how much income you lost during this time?
It was a tremendous toll on our entire family, not only, monetarily, but physically, emotionally. This is a very, very costly episode that's in excess of $100,000.
I can't even believe that. And so at any point, were you telling them, listen, I'll do or I'll say whatever you need me to do to get out of this?
Essentially, yes. I mean, yeah, we were willing to do anything, to allow me to return home. And, that was not being heard, obviously on the island. There's a lot of, anti-American sentiment that you hear there frequently. When you have police officers telling you that, hey, this is a money grab, this is political.
So I was going to ask you that. Do you think this was predatory?
As I look back on it, I've had some time now. They had numerous ways to deal with this other than, what I had to go through for 101 days. So, there were other folks left go. There were three individuals arrested and charged under their Customs Act that essentially paid a fine and boarded their flight and went home after I was arrested. And when you look at that, and to be in my situation where I was stuck for 3.5 months, there's no way that they're, equally applying any of the laws on the island. A lot of the locals were supportive of us. They could not believe what we were going through. Like I said earlier, they said it's a money grab.
Turks and Caicos lives off the tourism. I've been there. It's a beautiful place. I didn't have an experience like you did. This is such terrible PR for the Turks and Caicos. So if it is predatory, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
It doesn't, and that's what we're still trying to fully understand. There were comments made that, by their local tourism board to the congressional delegation that was there, that this is essentially an extended vacation for these Americans. And when you hear things like that just is completely disheartening, and it was far from an extended vacation. It was pure torture.
What did you do day in, day out?
Basically, I was there to check a box to get to the next day. Each day that passed was one day closer to being home with my family. Obviously, everything I could possibly do, to put myself in a better situation to get home. But that's hard. There's only so many times you can look at, beautiful blue water and white sand. It's no longer a vacation. It was truly, prison outside of the 4 walls.
Who finally helped you? Did you finally just have to help yourself? Or did someone come to your rescue?
So I look at this in power of numbers in some regard. Once there was a second, a third, a fourth American detained there, this obviously grabbed a lot of traction media-wise. A lot of support from senators, congressmen, governors in our respective states. They made a trip down on the congressional delegation. I truly believe, without that and the media attention that was brought to this, that this could potentially be a different outcome.
Yeah. What would your message be to the government of Turks and Caicos tonight?
Well,
if you could talk to them directly, what would you say?
There are a number of ways to deal with this, and they chose to deal with it in a way that, truly put my family through the worst time of their life. And, I would hopefully ask them to look at different ways that they have dealt with this and could deal with this in the future in a different way that would not have the impact on someone's life that it did mine.
And any advice for travelers going to places like Turks and Caicos?
There are a lot of beautiful destinations out there. Please choose wisely.
All right. Brian, we thank you so much for your time and all your honesty, and we're glad you're back in the United States.
Glad to be here.
Coming up, the growing water crisis tonight in Atlanta. Have you heard about this? 2 massive water main breaks, leaving thousands without water. Emergency workers struggling to fight fires. How long officials say it could take to fix? Stay with us. We're back with Top Stories news feed. The alleged Gilgo Beach killer reportedly facing a new murder charge. According to 2 sources familiar with the investigation, New York City architect Rex Heuermann is expected to be arraigned on his 5th murder charge on Thursday. Heuermann was arrested last year in the deaths of 4 women found along a remote stretch of Ocean Parkway in Long Island. The new charge following searches of Heuermann's home in a wooded area about 70 miles east of New York City. And a shark attack closing down an entire stretch of beach north of San Diego. Beaches in Del Mar, California, closed after a 46-year-old man was bit on the arm, hand, and torso by a shark. The man was rushed to the hospital with serious but not life-threatening injuries. A witness saying the man punched the shark in the face and nose to fight off that attack. We want to move now to Atlanta and that story we've been talking about all throughout the broadcast, where major water problems have carried on into the 4th day. 2 massive water main breaks over the weekend, leaving residents cut off and without clean drinking water. Officials partly blaming old and worn-down infrastructure. NBC's Priya Sridhar is in Atlanta.
Tonight, a state of emergency in Atlanta after 2 major infrastructure breaks over the weekend left thousands without water.
People need their water. People got to eat. People got to cook. We got kids. We need the help.
It all started Friday morning when a water main break was reported near the downtown area. Just hours later, another unrelated break, this time in the Midtown area. Several Fulton County Board of Health facilities and summer school programs shut down. A boil water advisory is also in effect for most of the city.
In my area where I live, people aren't able to take showers unless they use water bottle.
The Atlanta Fire Department setting up a water pickup location for residents. That same fire department struggling to fight a fire at an abandoned apartment on Sunday afternoon.
Each fire has its own challenges. In this case, because of the environment that we're in, there were water supply challenges.
The fire crew relying on the help of water tankers from 3 other counties. The city's mayor assured the public that crews were working nonstop to solve the widespread water issues.
Our main priority is to restore water service to all residents and businesses.
However, he did not offer a timeline for when the repairs would be done in the impacted area, something that's frustrating residents and visitors.
I would have thought that in America they would have been a lot more prepared. 4 days on, I think it's quite scary. Is it ill preparement or is it just stupidity?
Atlanta's Department of Watershed Management saying at least one of the major breaks was the result of old and corroded pipes, an issue Mayor Dickens addressed head-on this morning with NBC's Joe Fryer.
This is a result of crumbling infrastructure. Old pipes, there's pipes down there that's been since 1910, since 1930. The long-term plan is to invest in our infrastructure.
And at a city council meeting earlier today, city officials said that part of the reason it took so long to lift that boil water advisory is because they had to wait for the crews to finish repairing the water main break so that they could test the water. Tom?
All right, next to Top Stories Global Watch and a check of what else is happening around the world. We start with a Chinese spacecraft making a historic landing on the far side of the moon. China's National Space Administration said the unmanned spacecraft will gather rock and soil from the lunar South Pole in a 3-day exploration. Researchers say this will give a look at moon rocks never seen before and hope analyzing the materials gathered will answer questions about the formation of planets. China is still the only country to have landed a module on the dark side of the moon, and it has done so now twice. Deadly flooding continues to devastate parts of Europe. Take a look. New video shows helicopter crews searching for several people swept away by floodwaters in northern Italy. In Germany's Bavaria state, widespread flooding has left homes underwater, thousands forced to evacuate across both countries. At least 6 people are dead, but dozens are missing. And in El Salvador, President Nayib Bukele was sworn in for a second 5-year term. A U.S. delegation was present at the inauguration, led by Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas. Donald Trump Jr., Representative Matt Gaetz, and Tucker Carlson were also present. In 2021, Bukele allies removed several of the country's Supreme Court justices. The new justices then lifted a ban on consecutive re-elections, allowing Bukele to run for a second term. He was re-elected with 85% of the vote. We turn now to Gaza as the U.S. pushes Israel and Hamas to reach a ceasefire proposal laid out by President Biden on Friday. Many families are still trying to get out of the war zone, but evacuations out of Gaza cost tens of thousands of dollars. Now, many are turning to crowdfunding to raise that money, and the movement is taking off on social media. NBC's Stephen Romo has one family story.
I was sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a day.
When the Israel-Hamas war broke out, many Palestinian refugees living abroad, like Hassan Aboba, had just one focus:
to get my family out of Gaza as soon as possible. This is my sister, Sarah. Sarah was studying international law.
His mother and 5 sisters, he says, saw 20 relatives die in a single day.
It was very difficult to imagine what they were going through at the time, especially when communication was lost, sometimes for weeks.
As a U.S. resident in Buffalo, New York, Aboba tried everything.
I came to the conclusion that no one will be able to help get them out of Gaza. So that's when we started the GoFundMe.
It's a strategy being taken by many.
People now with Palestinian passports are able to travel through Egypt by paying upwards of $10,000 per person.
This money, according to Aboba, is going toward getting families onto an approved travelers list to cross into Egypt. But this does not include transportation, food, clothing, or shelter, which varies family to family and can add thousands of dollars.
Today I'm asking the public to help me rescue my family.
Aboba took to social media, even reaching out to influencers.
Really, his message kind of stuck with me.
Anissa Mahmoud is a Palestinian-American social media activist.
So I've received, at this point now, it's been thousands of messages from different families in Gaza. I try to verify that before I post those GoFundMes.
Solo activists or grassroots collectives like Operation Olive Branch have emerged to help verify and promote these direct aid campaigns by reaching out directly to the family or relatives and cross-checking details through social media.
Choose a family, share it with your family and friends on Instagram, on Facebook. I think people sometimes forget how far out their reach may be.
Aboba ended his Ramadan fast this year with his sister Yara by his side. While he also raised enough for his mother and other sisters to make their way to Egypt, their futures remain uncertain.
They overstayed in Egypt and they are unable to receive any funds from me.
Though Aboba and his sister are safe in Buffalo, their peace too feels tenuous.
I'm very grateful that I survived, but I struggle with feelings of guilt for leaving my family and friends behind. I hate how the world can be so cruel and unfair.
And there is still such a great deal of need right now. Operation Olive Branch says it's trying to help more than 800 families who are in Gaza right now. But raising money, that is just part of this battle. They also have to get that money to where it needs to go. Hassan telling us that you basically have to have someone in Egypt to help facilitate that. Thankfully, he had a friend who was able to help his family with that. But as we know, that is not the case for everyone. Tom?
Thank you for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.